here for folks like us, GROK City, GROK people.
Alright, welcome to the channel everybody. I am Aesop Grimm, and today I am going to show you how I used AI to troubleshoot some raid problems I was having with my hunter in World of Warcraft TBC Anniversary. I am a noob player. Lots of things that I don't know. And so after first initially getting some help from a guild leader who took me through Warcraft logs and showed me how to utilize some of the various tabs and screens you can go into in there to analyze your performance, I was in a good position the next day to go and ask AI the right kinds of questions, and I was surprised to find that it really walked me right down into what I need to do as a priority to get better. And it's not what I thought. It's not what I was worried was my number one problem. So let's go ahead and get started. Maybe I should give the kind of what I feel is almost obligatory look. I'm nervous about AI also. I'm like everybody else. But I think that human history, whenever it comes to big paradigm shifting technology, has an irrefutable trend of showing that you cannot put that genie back in the bottle. Once it's out, and we have to find out how to use it responsibly, and a lot of that is going to involve going into the unknown, which is inherently scary, and mistakes will probably be made. But we need to figure out how to harness this stuff and use it correctly, or somebody will figure out how to harness it and use it incorrectly and irresponsibly. So anyway, there's your spiel on where I'm at when it comes to AI, but I have used it here as a tool that was just like what it's advertised as a personal assistant that helped me figure some things out. And I want to showcase that. So you can see right here, I put the question in. I am parsing terribly on my TBC Anniversary Survival Hunter. If I give you the link to Warcraft logs, can you help me determine the problems? And we're going to go through this step by step so you guys can see how I'm asking questions, what information I'm giving it to kind of, whenever I can spot that the AI might be confused about something and I feed it some more info, and then it gives me feedback and it kind of like confirms, like, yeah, I needed to explain that to the AI because it didn't really know that. And that sharpens its analysis. You'll see that in here. I had to explain to AI, for example, a little bit of the differences between Beast Mastery and Survival. I'm a Survival Hunter. So it says that it wants me to give the Warcraft logs link, and I was impressed here that it already understood, I assume from scouring the internet, that auto shot clipping is the number one problem. And this is what I was worried about too. I was actually really nervous that I had a fundamental misunderstanding of how to use my weapon timer, and that perhaps I was clipping whenever I thought that I was firing right whenever I needed to be. And I suspected that that was the issue. It ended up that that was not the issue. I'm actually doing pretty well there. So we'll see that all unfold here. But I was impressed that it knew right away auto shot clipping is the number one problem, and that your average hunter actually clips 21% of their auto shots. And kill command usage was mentioned. I do not melee weave. Maybe I will eventually, but I've got enough to focus on just on my basics as a hunter before adding what I consider to be an advanced tool, pet uptime, etc. So I gave it the links, right? And I gave it a link to my gear. I gave it a link to my overall uptime on the first TK boss, Alar. And I gave it a link to my casts. That's what these links are for, these 3 links. Well, it comes back and it tells me, okay, a lot of this stuff is heavily JavaScript driven, so it can't read it. And it gives me a workaround on that. It wants me to kind of like feed it, like manually feed it those numbers for me to go look at the website, get the info, and then type it into here. Well, I remembered that GROK is actually good, and I don't know how the AI can do this. I guess it's got the visual aspect down. It can look at a picture and it can interpret the data. To me, that's wild. Like it's a machine, right? Technically, it should only be seeing zeros and ones, pixels. But it can understand that this group of pixels here it's spelling out 1,174, and then the pixels after it says DPS. So that's his DPS. I just think, how did we get to this point, man? That's a leap forward in my opinion in tech ability. So that's what it's telling me here, is to feed it this info, and I remembered that it could use pictures, so I said, would it be faster and or better to paste screenshots? And it said, yeah, actually it would. And it kind of tells me what it wants me to give it screenshots of. So I open up my first screenshot. Let's go ahead and pull GROK over onto my second screen. Let's see here. And then grab my picture. Now I still need to resize GROK. Boom, boom. All right, that'll be good enough. Here's our picture. Let's full size it. Okay, in this one we're looking right here. And I'll just read to you what I typed. I typed this to GROK. In this picture, I am Trump mugshot. Orcgasm is the other hunter and is Beast Mastery spec. He has slightly better gear than me. Now, I say that because I have an add-on that gives gear score. And his score is a little bit higher than mine. Both of us parsed bad, but Orc gets so many more auto shots out than me that I am perplexed. Notice his higher uptime, as it may explain later screenshots on damage. Okay, so I'm basically telling it, hey, look at this number right here. This is the active. Orc is doing 70, he was 78.13% active on the boss. I was only 50.66%. So this is a movement problem. This is a stay on target problem. Both of us are responsible for embers also, so that's not an excuse. He just flat out was able to stay on target far, far, far more than me. And the results are 676.3 DPS versus 592.1. Now, reminder, we both gray parsed. So some of you guys out there are going to obliterate us, but that shouldn't affect the concept that we're trying to grasp here. So if I continue on, GROK responds, got it, thanks for the screenshot. Your Trump mugshot on Alar normal. Immediate red flag. Your active time is only 50.66%. Orcgasm is at 78.13%. That's a massive gap and is almost certainly the main reason your parse is 6% while his is 11%, and why he gets far more auto shots out. On a around 7-minute and 30-second fight, 50% active means you're effectively only dealing damage for around 3 minutes and 45 seconds of the fight. Top players on this table are in the 70 to 85% range. So somehow, some way, it knows what the top players are doing. And I'm pretty sure that's an accurate number there. I don't know. It could be throwing some BS out there. But that seems reasonable to me. Well, Orc is right in the middle of that at 78. And I'm well below. Alar is a fight with a lot of movement, phase transitions, and embers. Hunters especially survival, because of not having the pet, suffer hard if they stand still too long waiting for the bird, get stuck out of range during transitions, spend too much time on embers instead of the boss, have long periods of not shooting because of positioning or pet issues. So, you know, as a survival hunter, almost all of my DPS is coming from myself. So if I'm doing those things and not hitting the boss, it's going to affect me much more than it's going to affect a BM hunter. The tooltip shows you did 24% of your damage to Ember of Alar, which is excluded from the ranking table. That's not crazy, but combined with the low active time, it's a problem. Next screenshot's needed, so then it tells me that it wants the casts tab, and it also wants to look at my summary tab, which will have my gear on it. And then it wanted me to get a zoomed in area of the timeline in an area where I had a valley, so like this right here. And I didn't really know how to do that, nor was I super interested in doing that. I already kind of knew the tabs that I wanted to give it. So let's go ahead and bring up the next info. I tell it, this screenshot shows gear and gems and enchants. I'm on the left and Orc is on the right. Let's bring up picture number 2. So here we are. I am item level 126. And Orc is item level 128. So he really is just like a touch better. And even that I'm not 100% sure on, because I have some BIS items that he went a different direction on. Like willfully too. He made that choice. But we're almost duplicates. We both have Riftstalker helmet. We both have it gemmed. Well, it's not gemmed the same way, but he's using a blue gem up here. I use mine elsewhere. We both, I have Choker of Vile Intent. Not anymore, I just got an upgrade for that. I got the Telonicus one. He has Choker of Animalistic Fury. We both have Riftstalker Mantle, and it's gemmed the same way. We both have the Halberg, Riftstalker Halberg, gemmed similarly. I have the Belt of Deep Shadow. According to Wowhead, that is BIS for every single hunter out there. He has opted for the Lurker's Belt. And I'm not quite sure why, but he's okay with it. We're a bit of a dad guild sometimes too. I mean, maybe he doesn't have time, you know. All I know is that I can make this, and I've offered to make it for him, but, you know, he would have to go get the mats, and maybe he doesn't have time to do that. We both have the Riftstalker leggings. We both have Cobra Lash boots. No, we don't. He has Starstrider boots. So again, my item level is higher. On the belt and on the boots, I have Bands of the Celestial Archer, so does he. We both have Riftstalker gauntlets. I'm using Ring of the Recalcitrant. His Violet Signet of the Master Assassin ranks a little bit higher. But this is supposed to be BIS. I have the Band of Eternity. He has a Ring of Recalcitrant also. Okay, so where I have Band of Eternity, he has Violet Signet, which is 2 points better. We both have Dragon Spine Trophy and Bloodlust Brooch. He has the Thalracian Cloak. That's going to be better than my Vengeance Wrap. Oh, that's where he's getting the boost from. That's an item level 138 compared to my 105. His Legacy is a two-handed axe at 115. I kind of blow him out of the water with... I have an equal level 115 and a 134. And then he has we both have the Arcanite Sting Pistol. Okay. Well, there you go. You have, again, we're very, very close to each other, right? So this is an excellent comparison. Now, as survival, my agility is going to obliterate him. I have 984 to his 792. My crit should obliterate him as well. 110 to 82. And I have a lot more hit I'm hit capped even without the survival talent. So I'm actually well over. I think I'm 12% hit capped. But I have 142 hit. He has 129. So he is, I don't think he is hit capped. So I have better stats. But man, that pet is going to do some big damage. Right? So anyway, I think that answers that question. Let's see what GROK said. Gear is not the problem. Side-by-side comparison. It's what I just told you. Went through the stats, looked at the hit, looked at the item level. And both talent trees are correct for their respective specs. It tells me you have clearly better personal stats for survival. Same core T4 pieces, same strong trinkets, good enchants and gems are visible. Your main hand and offhand and gun are fine. The 2 item level difference and his slightly better neck waist cloak do not explain an 80 plus DPS gap when your stats are superior. So that's why I like GROK, man. It's just blunt, straightforward. It's like, yo, yeah, there's a little bit of a gap here, but that don't explain this mess. Right? The real issue is still the 50.66% active time. Your damage graph has frequent deep valleys. Let's take a look at that again. We can see it. I suppose I can just full screen it. Kind of. Yeah. So I start out strong. Somewhere right here is where I just plummet. And from this point forward, so we're what? We're like halfway through the fight. I wonder, what is it that happened here? Are we into another phase now and Alar comes down? Because I might be really trying to take down Embers. I don't think so, though, because we've been told stay on boss. They kind of like, our guild leaders tell us when to get on the Embers, so that wouldn't be it. I think this is me moving around, trying to get in range. But from this point, for the rest of the fight, I have these deep valleys. Right. Oh, my bad. This is for the whole team. This is for the whole team. I'm not looking at the right picture. We're going to look at this. How do I get out of this? There we go. Okay, so this is for me specifically, and you can see these gaps. Look, they're down at 0. And that's more than he's got, like significantly more. So it's what I'm thinking. I'm not moving around right. But let's continue with GROK tells me that. Let's see what GROK says. Your damage graph has frequent deep valleys down near 0. His is much more consistent with higher peaks. On Alar, that almost always means too much time out of range or not shooting during platform transitions and phase 1 movement. Okay. Yeah. Here, and here, I'm guessing. Maybe even this one. In fact, I think it's likely. And then only one gap whenever Alar comes down is what I'm guessing. Because, look, we bloodlusted here. I don't think we would bloodlust unless we had transitioned the phase and we're later into the fight. Okay, well, I'm doing too much talking. Alright, so too much time out of range, not shooting during platform transitions and phase 1 movement, standing still, waiting for the bird instead of stutter stepping or using instants while moving. So it kind of gave me a tip there, right? Pet issues, line of sight dying or not attacking that cause you to stop, possibly over-focusing embers or bad positioning in the center for phase 2. I can promise you it's bad positioning in the center. And the reason is because there's parts of our fight where they call out, get out of the center. So my brain just kind of like tells me always stay out of the center. Well, I guess as a hunter, that's like, no, no, false. Stay in the center until those specific periods of time come when Alar's going to dive bomb, right? So this is where the AI, what I'm telling you is what I have learned from this session that we're going through. I know it because of this stuff that it told me. So ranged should be able to hit Alar from the center on most platforms. Good hunters minimize downtime hard on this fight. So now it wants the casts tab, which I already have up. So I tell it, this is the cast tab. Again, I am on the left as Trump mugshot and Orc is on the right. He has many more auto shots than me. Higher, what is that? I want to say actions per minute, CPM. You guys know what it is. It'll come to me later. But it's like actions per minute. It's how many keys you're pressing. And he annihilates me on both. I had 138 auto shots. He had 175. I had 112 steady shots. He had 108. And his CPM on that auto shot is 22.9. So call it 30 versus my call it 23, versus my 18. So it's substantial. He also used Serpent Sting. I don't think we're supposed to do that, but Alar is a pretty beefy target. So I might copy him in the future and weave that in on a boss like Alar that's going to last forever and a day. For us, where we're at right now. Okay, so it does the cast comparison. Let me bring this over so you guys can see it. See, it gives me the breakdown right here. Ability, you as survival, Orc as BM, and the difference. It tells me there was a difference of 37 auto shots. Steady shots were similar. He had a lot more kill commands. That's a direct result of him having a lot more auto shots. So those two together, especially with him as BM, is going to push him out in front. He has 23 multi-shots. I'm 11 down. I was 19 down on kill command. We're similar on arcane shots. Big gap in total casts. And the actions per minute. And the core problem is right here. So that's its analysis, right? What's going wrong? Downtime is the #1 killer. Your casting timeline, green bars, yeah, for me, the green bars, has long repeated gaps where you're doing almost nothing. His is nearly continuous. Those gaps line up with the deep valleys on your damage graph. I think my damage graph was from the first one. I'm not sure. I think that's what it's looking at here. Maybe I have my guy selected. I don't know. To me, this would be the whole guild. Anyway, again, I'm talking too much. On Alar, this is almost always positioning. Not being able to shoot during platform transitions, standing still, waiting for the bird, or getting forced out of range. Ranged can hit most platforms from the center. Good hunters barely stop. Number 2, 37 fewer auto shots. Auto shot is about 45% of your damage. Losing 37 of them is a huge chunk of DPS by itself. This is the direct result of the 50% low active time. Number 3, kill command is extremely low. Survival lives on kill command. With 110 crit rating plus talents, you should be proccing it constantly. 6 total on a 7-minute 30-second fight is very poor. His 25 is more normal for BM, but you should still be in the 15 to 25 plus range. This usually means either you're not critting enough when you are shooting, possibly clipping or bad weaving, or long periods with no shots, which equals no crits, which equals no kill command. Steady shot weaving looks okay when active. 112 steady shots versus 138 auto shots is roughly a 0.8 to 1 ratio. It's not a perfect 1 to 1, but not terrible. The problem isn't the rotation itself so much as how little time you're actually rotating. basically saying you're not doing anything, man. You're not firing your weapon. You need to be firing your weapon. You need to get shots down range. What to fix? Priority order. So fix the positioning and the downtime on alarm first, then the kill command discipline. Macro it or keybind it. Yeah, I've already got it macroed. The kill command is tied directly to the fact I'm not shooting. No kill command if not shooting, right? Auto shot clipping check. Once downtime is fixed, look at the auto shot gaps on the timeline. Any delay greater than 100 to 150 milliseconds is clipping and costs DPS. Practice the 1-to-1 steady weave until it feels automatic. Well, I actually do a little bit more complex than a 1-to-1, but I get it. Like, I can get a little bit better on that. Your gear and stats are already better than his for survival. Close the activity gap and the parse will jump hard. If you want, send one more screenshot of the timeline zoomed on a big gap. I can dig even deeper, but the main issues are clear from these 3 images. Alright, so I told him this is the best I could do, and it's the casts. It's this picture right here. I think it is what you are looking for. Can we analyze my auto shot clipping if possible? I am very concerned I'm not doing this right. You said earlier that I am getting 0.8 to 1 auto shot to steady shot ratio. Does this mean I am not clipping my auto shot very often? Because that would be great news for me. That was me. That was me talking to GROK. And GROK confirms, yes, this is useful. Here's the clear picture on clipping and the rest. Auto shot versus steady shot numbers from this damage table. 101 casts for 119,000 damage. He had 118 casts for 127,000 damage. Steady shot, me 112, him 108. Auto average hit, these are important. It shows me, and it shows in here too, but I'm glad that, like, this is what I mean. I'm not super familiar with Warcraft logs. I got kind of a crash course in it from one of my officers. But GROK pointed some of the things out that I wouldn't really necessarily have spotted on my own. And I don't see it reflected here. Where did he get that from? Where did GROK get that from? Is it, might be this picture. Oh, yes it is. Yes it is. Okay. What am I looking at here? Damage done by ability, including pets. Oh, I'm under the damage done category. Okay. So we're looking at the right picture now. And it's showing me that my auto shot average is hitting for 1200k, which is better than his 1100. And it also shows that my crit average for auto shot is 34.7%. So I'm critting more than him. And then because of the difference in agility, those crits are going to hit significantly harder than his are. His strength is going to be in his pet, right? Mine are in my arrows or bullets. My steady crit percentage was at 50.6% for steady shot, giving me 1400 on my average hit. And he was critting 37.3% of the time, so only 1100 on his average hit. So now let's see what GROK says. We can pretty much clearly tell what the conclusion is here, but let's see what GROK's conclusion is. Note, these cast counts are lower than the earlier casts tab because this view excludes ember damage and possibly some other filters. So it's only boss damage. The relative comparison still holds. Are you clipping auto shots? Mostly no. Good news. Your steady to auto ratio from the full cast tab was around 0.81 steady per auto. Ideal 1-to-1 weaving for typical TBC survival weapon speeds is right around 1.0. Being slightly under 1.0 usually means you're not forcing steady shots into the auto window, which is what causes clipping. You're leaving a little more room for the auto to fire cleanly. And that's true because on this raid that we did, if you can follow my mouse, I'll try to simulate it. My weapon timer let's just say that this area right here is my weapon timer. I have red marks right here and another one right here that show don't cast steady shot if the bar is past that point. That's actually my window for filling with an arcane shot or preferably a multi-shot. So what I do is I auto shot and then immediately, this is my window right here for steady shot. So I auto shot and then I immediately steady shot. And if there's enough space here, I send a multi-shot or an arcane shot. And then the timer starts again. And in the past, what I've done is I've hit that auto shot button about the same exact time that the timer starts, and I get into a rhythm on this. But what I started doing last night, because I was suspicious about clipping, is I started actually looking for the visual and listening for the sound, especially with a gun, it's a lot easier, for when my auto shot kicked off. And then I sent my steady shot. And you know what? A lot of times that bar was as far as halfway before that auto shot kicked off. Usually it was more like around this area right here. But it certainly wasn't over here where I had been starting my steady shot. So I don't know if that makes a difference or not, because steady shot is a cast. Maybe it's not interrupting anything. But what I was doing lines up with what he's saying. Your auto average hit, or where is it? You're leaving a little more room for the auto to fire cleanly, which is why I'm not on a 1-to-1. I'm at 0.81. So its next thing that it says is your auto average hit is actually higher than his, 1200 versus 1100. And your crit rates are solid, which also points to clean shots rather than delayed or clipped ones. True clipping shows up as auto shot delays beyond your weapon speed, X amount of time beyond your weapon speed. From the casting timeline you sent earlier, see, look at how much data it's crunching for me. There's no way I could have gotten this on my own. This is AI answering questions I didn't even know how to figure out myself. I knew to ask them, but I didn't know how to figure them out. And because I'm letting the assistant look at my data, the assistant is interpreting that data far better and more efficiently than I would, which is giving me a leg up, right? This is like having a secretary, I guess. I like that term, assistant. From the casting timeline you sent earlier, the green bars, when present, look reasonably dense. So in other words, whenever I'm not sitting there doing nothing, right? The green bars look reasonably dense and consistent in height. The big empty gaps are pure downtime, not micro slips. So your weaving when you are shooting, is acceptable. Talking about my steady shot versus my auto shot. The rotation itself is not the main problem. What the numbers still scream, downtime remains the dominant issue. Kill command is still extremely low, which is really a product of downtime. So really I consider this to be the same. But it tells me with 34 to 50% crit rates, you should be lighting it up far more often. This is the next biggest mechanical leak after downtime. But they're hand in hand. This is driving this. Your individual shot quality is fine. Higher average hit and higher crit percentage than the BM Hunter confirms your gear and stats. And your shot execution when active are good. Okay, so not necessarily throwing Orgasm under the bus, it's just telling me that these things indicate that my rotation is fine. It's my dead times that are the problem. So for me, that was a tremendous answer. Because, you know, whenever you're not sure of what the problem is, you're putting effort into multiple things. This basically said, stop worrying about your rotation. You're doing fine. You need to laser focus on this. So I'm like kind of excited about what I was able to get out of AI just so far. We have a lot more to go through, and I don't know how many people are going to stick with this or not. But I think that this is interesting enough to just share it and go through it bit by bit. Bottom line and action plan. clipping is not your big problem. You can stop worrying about that for now. Primary focus, cut the downtime hard on Alar. Central positioning and stutter stepping so the green casting bars become nearly continuous like his red ones. Target 75% plus active time. Secondary, never miss a kill command. Yeah, I won't. I have it macroed. Once active time rises, your higher personal stats and solid weaving will show up as significantly better parses. You're in better shape mechanically than the low parse suggests. The activity gap is just masking it. Fix that and the rest should climb quickly. If you want to check clipping more precisely, okay, this is where it's talking about get a zoomed in timeline for me. And so I tell it, I'd like to continue this exact methodology through the other fights to check for other issues and or ensure downtime is my number one issue. So it says, okay, let's do that. All right, so then I told it, so we're going to go, now not all of these bosses are great measurement bosses, but they give the full picture of what my performance was like for the night. We should be able to speed up a little bit. This first part took me a long time to get through. I was explaining a lot of stuff, but now, just like whenever I was asking it, I knew what pictures to grab and stuff. The whole process should speed up a little. So the next boss is Void Reaver. So we're going to bring up picture number 1 for Void Weaver. That's going to be down here at the bottom. And maybe I can just double click it. We'll do it like that. Okay, so again, right here, this is for the whole guild. Or the whole raid. And here I am, I've got a 27. So I green parsed on this one. And I had a 98.15% uptime for 849.2 DPS. I'm also one of the people that sit on the wings and soak up those arcane balls. The arcane orbs. And then Orgasm here, he also has to soak these up, and he probably just got a lot more arcane orbs than I did, so he had to move around a bunch. I did get a lot, though. I'm just assuming that he got a bunch, too. But look, his percentage is also really good. So let's see what AI has to say about that. Overview. Parse percentage 27% versus his 14%. Damage 210,000 versus his 164,000. Active percent 98% versus his 97%. DPS 849 versus his 663. I also suspect his pet died in this fight. Against Void Reaver, that would be pretty normal. Whereas I know that mine did not. So I continued to reap the benefit of kill commands throughout because my pet stayed alive. Fight length 4 minutes and 7 seconds. Okay. You clearly outperformed him here, and your active time is excellent. 98%. This is a clean, high uptime fight for you. Damage breakdown. Auto shot 76%. 69 casts. 1100 average. 36% crit. Now, let's look at him here. He did 75,000 damage. Look, once again, 82 casts. 82 casts versus my 69. Now we're both having to move around. And I don't think it's my rotation. I don't think I'm clipping my auto shots. We already kind of went into that. GROK went into it. I think what is happening here is that similar to Alar, Orgasm, as a better, more experienced player, has a better intuition and knowledge of how far he needs to move and when he can stop, plant his feet, and start damaging again. And I think that whenever that arc orb comes, he gets out of range and he gets back on the target significantly faster than I do, because this is still a substantial difference. The reason that I outdid him is because I'm hitting so much harder with higher crits. That's the only reason. He's actually performing better than I am. Steady shot. I did 67,000 damage to his 54,000. I had 57 casts. He had 53. So I am a little quicker on my steady shot. I hit for 1200, he hits for 1000. I had 42% crit. He had a comparable 40%. For our pets, see, not broken out the same. I wonder if he even had his pet out. There's a chance, because we're trying to move quick, there's a chance that his pet had died getting up to that point and he didn't have time to res it and get maned up before it was go time, which as a beast mastery hunter is going to be really hard on him. Or his pet died real early. It's one of those two is what I'm thinking. Meanwhile, I had 45,000 damage from my pet, about 21% of my damage. Arcane shot was 17,000. Let's see, I had 13 casts. He had 21 casts. So he got more arcane shots off. I only had 4 multi-shots. He had 10. So see, he's outperforming me pretty badly when it comes to shots fired. Key takeaways. Downtime is not the problem here. 98% active is elite. The casting damage graph looks continuous and healthy. This confirms that on fights with less forced movement, Void Reaver is mostly a static stand and shoot fight. It's not really, it doesn't know that what my role is. My role is not stand and shoot, right? And I've explained that to you already, but I think I will tell it down here. Your activity is fine. You won on personal damage and pet contribution. Still some mechanical room. Multi-shot usage is low. Oh, and this particular thing, I actually made duplicates of a picture number 2, so I had to go back and make the casts picture again. I just messed up and somehow got a duplicate of number 2. So I uploaded 3 photos, but it was 1, 2, and 2 instead of 1, 2, and 3. So it can't really see the kill command count, so it needs to see the cast tab. Steady to auto ratio is again around 0.83, perfectly acceptable, no major clipping signal. Why only a 27 parse if you beat the other hunter? The top of the meter is pushing 1300 to 1400 DPS. You're at 849. The gap is mostly gear buffs, world buffs, consumables difference versus the top parsers. Plus the fact that Void Reaver parses can be inflated by perfect conditions. Your execution relative to your co-hunter is strong. Okay, well, that's not necessarily what I'm aiming for, but it is what I'm working with for this little science experiment. I just really wanted to keep as many variables out of the picture as I could. Summary so far across 2 fights. Alar downtime was the massive number 1 issue plus very low kill command. Void Reaver downtime was solved. You beat the BM Hunter cleanly. Remaining gains are smaller. This is exactly the pattern we wanted to see. Downtime is highly fight dependent for you right now. Okay, so then I tell it, my bad, here are the casts. Also bear in mind that ironically I am having to move a lot because I am soaking up the arcane orb he fires. I stand on the periphery, okay, and then I explain what that job is. It is common for him to send 3 or 4 arc orbs at me consecutively, forcing me to run around that whole time and only get an occasional arcane shot off. Okay, so then it looks at my cast time and updates it. So now we can get the, I still can't think of what that C stands for, but I know that this is like an actions per minute measurement. And see, orc is significantly higher. This is troubling. This is where I need to close the gap if I want to become a better player. It doesn't matter what the raw numbers are. I'm hitting a lot harder than he is, so I can close that gap. If you gave him the same tools and gear, he would do better with it than me. That's what I'm saying. I got to get better in my actual personal performance. Steady shot, pretty comparable. He didn't have his pet out or something to that effect. I actually had good performance from my pet. Arcane shots, he obliterates me on. And he beats me on multi-shot as well. Total cast, here it is. Well, my pet helps close that gap a lot, I guess. Active time. Analysis with the orb soaking context. Your explanation makes perfect sense. Being the primary or frequent arcane orb soaker forces repeated long runs. Despite that, you still maintain 98% active time, which is excellent. Kill command is healthy at 22 casts. This is a night and day improvement over the 6 you had on Alar. Steady to auto remains around 0.83. Still clean, no major clipping signal. Your personal shot quality average hit plus crit stayed stronger than his, which is why you outdamaged him, even with fewer autos. Now, I just realized I should let you guys see these pictures. So here's picture number 2. Damage done. And I assume I'm green. No, I mean, all of this is me. Whatever this is, I think is telling. I don't know how to read this. I should just say that. Okay, there it is. This is my pet. This is my steady shot. There's barely any multi-shot in here. Arcane shot is orange. That's this guy right here. And I guess I threw an aimed shot in there. Yeah, probably at the very beginning for misdirect. It's right there. Okay. Here's my DPS figures. So then if we bring up picture 3, which is what it's looking at right now, so let's compare the gaps. Okay, yeah, see these short gaps here? I think that this is him getting back on target after having to run away from an arcane orb, and I just don't really tend to duplicate that. They're right here. I have some gaps that are like that, but most of them, what I'm probably doing is running further than I need to. And that's going to explain how he's getting more shots, I believe. But look at how regular I am here. That's pretty solid. When it comes to the damage, I'm not up and down. I have gaps, but I'm doing solid. I'm doing consistent damage. Okay, moving on. Kill command healthy. Shot rotation is solid. Personal shot quality stayed stronger than his, which is why you outdamaged him even with fewer autos. The casting timeline does show some lower/greener periods and small gaps which line up with the consecutive orb runs you described. During those forced moves, you correctly fell back to arcane shot and the occasional multi-shot. That's the right play. What this fight tells us, when the fight allows high uptime, or you can stay mostly in range while moving, your fundamentals are solid. Good weaving, good kill command usage, strong individual shots, and a productive pet. The big Alar problem was fight-specific positioning and movement, not a general rotation failure. On Void Reaver, the remaining gaps was a purple/orange parse. The remaining gaps versus a purple/orange parse are mostly slightly fewer autos, low multi-shot count, and gear buff differences versus the absolute top of the meter. Now, I don't know that it's right about that. I want to know, the top parsers, I doubt that they're soaking arcane orbs. They probably have other people, mages or something like that, that are out there in the periphery doing that. And the top parsing hunters on this fight are going to be standing stock still and just laying into the boss. That's what I would expect. But even if we could find a way to filter down to the ones that are, if we could find a way to find these gaps, because these are, I think, the telltale signs. I don't think it's going to be slightly fewer autos. I think the top parsers, even the ones that are doing the same job I am and soaking arcane orbs, are going to have a lot more than even 82, because both of us, we're not doing good on our parses. So orange and purple is going to be a lot more auto shots. Okay, pattern so far. Movement heavy fights leads to downtime, and that is your number one issue, along with the kill command collapsing with it. On lower movement fights, I perform well relative to the other hunter and maintain strong kill command. Alright, this is a very useful diagnostic info. You're not fundamentally broken. The biggest lever is still reducing downtime on the fights that force a lot of movement. And it's ready for the next boss. So we're going to do High Astromancer. Okay, let's get that picture up. High Astromancer. Right here. Let me get a drink. Okay. Orc led the whole raid with on DPS 1500 as well as his active time. He had a 47 parse. So we have people that parsed better. That's our tank right there, 93. This is one of our main healers in 89. We had blue parsers amongst the DPS, but their classes couldn't keep up with what Orc was doing with his damage. He led in DPS and also overall damage, of course. Okay, so where did I fall in? I had a 32 at 70.46% active, 1,260 DPS. So let's bring GROK up and see what it thought about all that. Okay, parse 32% versus his 47%, 189,000 versus his 229,000, 70% versus his 81% active time, 1260 DPS versus his 1524. You are behind him again, and active time is the clear differentiator. Auto shot, I had 47 casts, he had 67. 43 on steady shot to 44 for him. So this is another thing too, is that, and me and my officer, we talked about this. Maybe I am still doing, rather than saying maybe I'm doing more clipping, maybe it's better to say he's clipping less, and perhaps significantly less than me, because it looks like he's a whole lot more careful. Well, you know what? He's filling. Where's his arcane? We don't have arcane shots on here. No, so, and we're pretty comparable on multi-shots. Well, he does have an edge, but it's not blowing me out of the water bad. I think he's just more careful about letting his auto shot get off. And he's willing to sacrifice his steady shot to do it. Which that's what I'm trying to do also. I'm toning it down on that. Oh, but you are supposed to be getting a 1-to-1. I don't know, guys, man. I'm spending a lot of time trying to analyze this. We need to move on, because we've got other bosses to get through. Casting timeline shows a large dead period, roughly 50 seconds to a minute 25, which is the Solarium Agent / Void phase. Now, I can't remember what happened there. I know that I had to run out of the group at one point in time, but I don't think that was at the end. I can't think of what would have happened to hurt me there, but I don't know. Matching the big dip on the damage graph. So it's telling me that this is not for the whole raid. This is me. This is my graph, is what I think is being said. I need to look at that. I need to go into this and just kind of pay attention to what I'm doing. Okay. When you are active, execution is strong. Oh, wait. We need to read this. Downtime is, again, the main issue. 70% active versus his 81%. The long gap during the agent phase is costing you a lot of auto shots. You have around 20 to 25 fewer. That alone explains most of the DPS gap. Number 2, when you are active, execution is strong. Kill command is healthy. Your auto and steady average hits and crit percentage are significantly better than his. And steady auto ratio is very good. Oh, look at that. I was at 0.9. That's... yeah, so I was doing great on that. It's this. Whatever happened to get me to flatline in this area is what destroyed my parse. Alright, no clipping red flags. Pet contribution is lower. Your pet did 14% versus his 26%. On this fight, the pet can sometimes get stuck or lose uptime during the agent phase or void zones. Worth watching. Okay. Pattern continues. High movement or phase heavy fights. Active percentage drops and you fall behind. Low movement fights. Active percentage stays high and you outperform them. The agent phase is a specific problem here. Many hunters lose uptime if they have to run far for voids or if the pet gets left behind. Better pre-positioning or quicker re-engagement after the phase transition would close most of this gap. Overall diagnosis so far, downtime on movement and phase-heavy bosses is consistently your number one issue. Your rotation, weaving, kill command usage when active, and individual shot quality are solid. Fix the activity gaps on those fights, and your parses should rise across the board. Okay, so I told it. This is where I let him know about the difference between Beast Mastery and Survival. I say, be advised, Beast Mastery is the higher DPS spec. I am not sure by how much, but it is meta for a damn good reason. A good part of that has to do with how much that tree buffs the pet. His pet should be crushing mine in DPS. Survival, however, is known for hard-hitting crits. It wants agility over attack power compared to Beast Mastery, and higher crit percentage, leading to more kill commands. So just something to keep in mind. So then it goes through and kind of reflects back some info to me. I guess we should read it. Beast Mastery is the higher personal DPS meta spec in TBC Anniversary, primarily because the tree massively buffs the pet. A well-played Beast Mastery pet regularly contributes 25 to 35% of the hunter's total damage. Survival trades some of that raw throughput for higher personal crit percentage, harder hitting auto and steady shots from the agility stacking, significantly more kill commands, and stronger raid contribution via exposed weakness. So when we compare you, Survival, to Orgasm as Beast Mastery, we should expect his pet to outperform yours noticeably, him to have higher total DPS on most fights if both play cleanly, you to show higher average hit and crit percentage on auto and steady, and more kill commands when uptime is equal. Okay? So, how this affects the analysis so far. On the Alar fight, your downtime was catastrophic. On Void Reaver, high uptime lets your stronger personal shots and solid kill command overcome the pet gap. And then on Solarian, agent phase downtime plus his stronger pet. The pattern still holds clearly. When your active time is close to or better than his, your survival toolkit competes well or wins. When active time drops significantly, the BM pet advantage plus extra auto shots pull him ahead. Your higher crit rates, higher average hits, and healthy kill command counts when you're actually shooting. I love how it puts when you're actually doing something, are exactly what we'd expect from a well-played survival hunter. The main limiter remains the fight-specific downtime, not a fundamental rotation or gear problem. Remains the fight-specific downtime. Yeah, not a fundamental rotation or... Okay, got it. I'll keep waiting the comparisons with the BM pet advantage in mind going forward, ready for the next fight when you are. Okay, so then I tell it, Kel'Thas Sunstrider. So, before we do that, let's look at the other pictures here for Solarian. So we can see there's my 45 casts. Average cast was 1700 for the auto shot. 48.9% crit percentage, 1700 average hit. Oh. Yeah, because I'm hit capped, every shot I fire hits. So these numbers theoretically should duplicate each other. They should mirror each other. I see a difference right here. 1500 versus 1600. That indicates a missed shot, I think. Maybe I don't know what I'm looking at. I can definitely do a comparison though. 45 versus 67. 1700 versus 1200. 45 hits out of my 45 casts. For him, 66 hits out of his 67. Doing 1200 damage. Here's his miss percentage. I did miss. Oh, Tom Homan missed. My pet. Okay. He had 9 multi-shots and 9 arcane shots. He uses Serpent Sting pretty routinely. And he threw in a Raptor Strike. 2 of them. So maybe I ought to give that a shot. A Serpent Sting. I don't know. The meta says don't do it. I don't know enough to say yay or nay. But I had 5 arcane shots and 4 multi-shots. So again, I'm getting outperformed there. Okay, what's the casts show? High Astro, there we go. 18.8 CPM versus his 28.8. What's the total? 51.1. Oh, I didn't get it in there. Darn. I would have liked to have seen that. Here's the gaps. You can see enormous gaps compared to Orc. I have got to find a way to make that never happen again. That's what I need to do. Here's my kill commands. I had 17 kill commands. He had 19. 11.11% of his damage. Okay. Moving on. We're on to Kel'Thas Sunstrider now. Let's bring up Kel'Thas number 1, the picture. I got a 49 parse on this one. 75.38% uptime, 895 DPS. And Orc is here at 26. 85.54. Son of a gun, he beat me again. Ah, it's upsetting me. Which is the right reaction, because that's a motivator, right? All of this, I do this, you know, I'm not that guy that's like, I must destroy you, there can be only one. I do this for my own motivation. I want Orc to be as good as possible, and I don't much really care if he's better than me or not, but it gives me the carrot to chase so that I can get better, so I can help the guild. You know, so everybody's got their own motivations and how they work, and that's how mine works. So he had higher uptime, but he had lower DPS, and that's because I hit harder than him. But that higher uptime, man, that's really starting to kind of get on my nerves. Parse parse percentage, 49% to 26%. There it all is. It's all lined out. You can see it. Let's keep moving. You beat him again and posted a solid 49 parse despite lower active time. This is a good result for survival. Auto shots. Here we go again. 156 to 158 casts. He had 209 to 215 casts. He is absolutely murdering me. It's not close. It's not remotely close. He is outclassing me badly on his number of auto shots. And it's directly tied to the uptime. Yeah, I've got to keep all of this tied. See, what's happening here, guys, is that I am so nervous about my rotation that I keep kind of in my mind going back to, am I clipping? Am I clipping? No, I'm not firing at all. That's the thing. That's why his auto shots are so far ahead of me. We're going to be raiding tonight. I need to close this gap. As soon as I possibly can, I need to close this gap. And probably what that might mean is that I try to shadow him a little bit to see where he's setting up, when he moves, where he moves to, because he very clearly knows what he's doing in comparison to myself. He's way ahead of the ball game, or in the ball game, than I am when it comes to movement and possibly anticipation. Steady shot. I had 126 casts. He had 145. Man, I had 27 kill commands. Yeah, oh, that explains his parse. He's beast mastery. He either lost his pet early, or he didn't get it out there in time. Oh, he had it out there. Oh, you know what? We both lost our pet. I remember that. We both lost our pet on this fight. I'm assuming he lost his way before mine. Because with this many more casts, he should have way more kill commands than I did. 18 multi-shots to 22, so that's good. I closed the gap on that. 38,000 damage from my pet. For him it was 33. Total cast is embarrassing. 393 to 472. It's not even close. I don't belong in the same arena. 35 CPM versus his 42. Okay. Takeaways. You won on pure shot quality. Your auto and steady hits are substantially harder and crit much more often. That is classic survival versus BM and is exactly why you overcame the active time and auto shot count deficit. Active time is still the limiter. 75% versus his 85% means you left a meaningful number of autos and steadies on the table. The casting timeline shows several lower periods, especially mid-fight. Let's get those pictures up. Okay. $156, 126, 33 arcane. I somehow got it into my system to hit arcane, and I really need to be hitting multi-shot much more often. I've got to figure out how to rewire my brain on this. Because I'm consistently, I just know that as a player, I fire off that arcane shot more than I fire off multi-shot, and I know that that's a mistake. I can't break it down for you in detail. I just know that it's a mistake. What else can I get off this screen? We got the gap right there. There's a gap, and here's a big gap. Well, he kind of had the same. Alright, so what was GROK saying? Several lower periods, especially mid-fight. Oh. Yeah. I wonder if this is the weapons phase or something. because I am significantly lower in this whole chunk. Okay. Alright, well, we need to press on. What else does it tell me? Kill command is serviceable, but not great. Oh, wait. Kale has a lot of movement, weapon phases, advisor downtime, so this is expected, but there's still room to tighten it. Okay, kill command, 27 casts on an 11-minute fight is okay, but given your high crit rates, you should be able to push this higher when uptime improves. On Void Reaver, you hit 5.3, conditions per minute, counts per minute, keys per minute. I don't know. I like to say actions per minute. The drop here tracks with lower active percentage. Okay, that's the bottom line right there. That one. Pet contribution is close. Surprisingly, even, your pet actually edged his. On a long multi-phase fight, the BM pet advantage didn't fully materialize. Running pattern across all fights. Massive downtime. Near perfect uptime. Agent phase downtime. Superior personal damage. On Kel'Thas. Conclusion so far, your survival kit is working when active time is within 5 to 8% of the BM Hunter. You win or stay very competitive. When the gap widens past 10 to 15%, especially on movement heavy fights, the BM pet and extra autos pull ahead. The number one actionable issue remains reduced downtime on high movement fights. Everything else looks solid. Alright, so I tell him on that fight, I think we both had our pets die. He may have lost his earlier. A dead pet is going to crush a BM Hunter's damage. Good catch. That changes the context significantly. On Kel'Thas, both pets dying and his possibly dying earlier removes a large chunk of the normal BM advantage. A dead pet hurts Beast Mastery far more than survival because so much of BM's damage is pet dependent. That helps explain why pet damage ended up almost equal. You were able to pull ahead overall despite lower active time and fewer auto shots. The usual BM should crush you on personal DPS expectation didn't fully apply. So the Kale result is a bit less impressive. There's a reason that I'm reading all of this. I want you guys to take note what it said right there, because that caught my attention. So the Kale result is a bit less impressive for survival than it first looked, but it still shows your personal shot quality is strong enough to compete when the pet gap is neutralized. The broader pattern across other fights remains valid. When both pets are alive and your active time is close, you stay competitive or win. When your active time drops significantly, the BM package pulls away. Downtime on movement and phase-heavy fights is still the clearest and largest lever you have. Want to keep going, or would you like to consolidate? Okay, so this is where I tell it, FYI, I'm not sure Beast Mastery overall damage should crush me. Maybe just edge me out. I really don't know the answer to that. But his pet damage should crush my pet damage. So, see, that's what you have to do with AI. You need to spot things where it's sort of making some wrong assumptions based on info it's seeing or based on what it read into your comment, or combining the two where it reads your comment and then it references the internet and it ends up drawing, like, your comment maybe steered it in the wrong direction. You got to pull them back onto the road. And that's what I did right here. You're right to separate the two things. Realistic expectation and TBC anniversary. Overall DPS, a well-played BM Hunter should generally be ahead of a well-played survival hunter on most pure single-target fights. So see, you can tell that it referenced the internet. But the gap is usually modest. This is how I can tell. Often in the 5 to 12%. See, that's very specific. So he's not BSing. He went to the internet and he scoured forums and stuff and got some info and got a consensus. Often in the 5 to 12% range depending on fight length, gear, and how much the pet stays alive. It is not a massive BM crushes survival situation in the current anniversary balance. Survival stays competitive, especially on fights with movement, or when the BM pet takes significant downtime. Now that's something else I noted. Survival stays competitive, especially on fights with movement. So as survival, I should be doing better than I was whenever I was Beast Mastery. But I'm not. Well, I don't know if that's true. what I'm saying is that I still have my biggest issue is on movement-based fights. I have to get better at that. Even my class is more geared towards it. My subclass. Pet damage specifically. Yes, a BM pet should noticeably outperform a survival pet. The talent tree differences make the BM pet meaningfully stronger. Seeing the BM pet do 25 to 35% plus of the hunter's total damage, I think it should be more around 50%. While a survival pet sits more in the 12 to 20% range, is normal when both pets are alive and attacking. So your mental model is correct on the pet side. On the overall DPS side, BM is favored, but not by a gigantic margin if the survival hunter has high uptime and good kill command usage. In the logs we've looked at, the times you lost were driven more by large active time gaps. Here's the big conclusion, right? Than by the pure spec difference. When active time was close, or the BM pet was dead, you stayed competitive or pulled ahead, which lines up with survival being a viable, if slightly lower ceiling, option. Alright, so then we're going to go on to Hydros. You can see we got a high demand thing, so I had to submit it again. Hydros, I was awful on this fight. First of all, did we look at all of Kael'thas? Let's look at the pictures. Okay, you can see the graph here. It's very clear. It's really, really, really clear. Look at how stacked he is. Yeah, he has some gaps, but they're not nearly as much as mine. For one thing, my largest gap is about triple his largest gap. We both have a gap here, so this, I think, is when a transition is happening. We're moving into a different phase. Everybody got thrown up in the air, something like that. Okay, so then his gaps are minuscule, man. He has very small gaps. Here's his biggest one right here. And this one and this one are bigger than his largest gap. Maybe this one is bigger too. It looks pretty close. It's also at exactly the same time, so that's probably another transition. Alright, well anyway, point being, exceptionally clear cut where my deficiencies are at. CPM of 14.2, he has a 19.3. Let's see what the total is. 42.3 versus 35.2. He blows me out of the water. Okay. Alrighty then. I like these that, I'll be able to dig into this and finer, more granular detail in the future too. Like finding out where I'm using my trinkets and if I'm lining them up the right way with things like bloodlust. Am I using my trinkets as often as possible in a fight? But I need to fix this first. Get this handled first, and then I can start digging into finer detail. So that was Kael'thas. Hydros I was really, really bad on. And I know why, but I had to remember why. When I first start talking to GROK, I don't know why, and I'm asking GROK to help me figure it out. Okay. Orgasm led the fight here with almost 1500 DPS and an 81.59% active time. Here I am with a 14. I gray parsed it. He had a blue 53 parse. Congrats, Orc. That's really good. For where we've been at, that's good. 184,000 for me, 76.38% uptime. So even though I know why I was worse on this fight, I know the number one reason. We have a repeat violation time and time again. It's this active percentage. Substantially lower than him. Substantially. And it's crippling my DPS. I was awful on this fight, which surprised me. I wonder if I didn't have a buff, or maybe I hadn't rezzed my pet before the fight started. And then I realized that I had just copied and pasted and I didn't get these pictures uploaded, so here they are. Okay, Hydros the Unstable Analysis. I had a 14%, he had a 53%, 184,000 damage to his 293,000. 76% active rate to his 82%, 936 DPS to his about 1500. This is one of your weaker performances. Active time is only modestly lower, so pure downtime is not the full story. Active time is only moderately lower? I don't think so. Well, I guess that's 5% less. I guess that's not as much as I thought it was. My other active time disparities have been much greater, I guess is what GROK is saying. So pure downtime is not the full story. It knows something else is wrong. Something else is wrong here. To explain, this is a massive difference in DPS. Auto shot. 72 casts to his 89. So I closed the gap significantly, but I still have some distance to go. I had 55, to his 63. My pet didn't do very much damage, but that's in league with, I think that's in league with me with survival versus BM. Kill command. He had a whole lot more kill command. Multi-shot, 9 versus 10 were really close. Total casts, I got beat pretty bad. Pet damage is the biggest single gap. Active time is secondary but still present. Kill command is low again. Personal shot quality remains good. Higher average hits and much higher steady crit percentage than the BM Hunter, consistent with every other fight. Most likely causes pet not alive. Slightly more downtime than him during the nature and frost transitions or mark handling. And whenever I read that, that's what keyed me in. And then lower kill command uptime as a result of the above. Okay, so I told it, oh, I know what it is. I am tasked with having Aspect of the Wild on to give tank nature resist. Orc likely had Aspect of the Falcon up. So it tells me that explains a big part of the gap. Aspect of the Wild is a real DPS sacrifice. It removes the ranged attack power and the crit from improved Aspect of the Hawk if you have it, which I'm pretty sure I do. That Aspect of the Hawk provides, on a fight like Hydros where nature resist is needed for the tank, someone has to run it, and that someone loses a noticeable chunk of personal damage. Combined with your pet only contributing 10%, slightly lower active time, and lower kill command count, the 14 parse and large DPS difference versus Orc makes sense. You were essentially playing with a self-nerf for the raid's benefit while he was on full personal DPS aspects and a much stronger pet. This is a classic raid utility cost situation rather than a pure execution failure. On fights where you don't have to run Aspect of the Wild, your relative performance has been much closer or better. Okay, so moving on, we go to Lurker. Well, let's go through the other pictures here. Hydros. We've looked at Hydros 1. Here is Hydros 2. Yeah. See, I have a longer gap, a lull, twice. This is transition periods. I bet you he's standing right at that line and just taking a step over and then he's on the boss. And what I tend to do, let's say that the line is right here. What I tend to do, out of just my nature and the hunter class, what I'm used to, is I run to the back. And especially if I start drawing aggro and stuff, I get range. And I try to kill the ads and stuff like that. There are times that if I'm able to do it efficiently, I'm trying to get not kill command, I'm trying to get misdirect up on our off tank to help funnel ads to them. So it's misdirect onto the off tank. See, this is all taking seconds, right? I stop firing on the boss, I use my mouse over macro to put a misdirect on our off tank. I'm simulating where the raid frame would be. It would be kind of like over here. Then I target and add, and then I either multi-shot or I distracting shot. I tried to multi-shot just to get him some snap threat on all of the as many targets as I can. And then I have to retarget the boss and start firing again. So that's going to hurt my personal DPS also, but it's going to help the raid, right? But I run to the back. So if I get threat on any of those ads and they start chasing me, I tend to run to the back. Well, now I've got to run all the way over here, and guess what I do over here? Run to the back. So I'm covering all this distance plus all of this distance, and I bet that he's just stepping across the line like this, which would be smart. That would be smart. I need to start following him and seeing what he's doing. Try to learn something from a player that's better than me. Alright, you can see the cast disparity. Actions per minute is not on this one, so let's look at number 3. I had 50 CPM, he had 63.1. See 22 CPM here on my auto shot versus his 27.1. Okay. I flipped to aspect of the hawk later. I guess. Yes, I remember that because I freaked out. I freaked out and thought that I had forgotten to bring up an aspect after being rezzed. But that's not true. I had aspect of the wild on. Even though it doesn't show it there, but I know I had that sucker on. I know it. Okay. So we're moving on to who? The lurker below. Lurker, where are you at? Alright. We're actually going to try and gloss through this pretty rapidly because there's one reason that we're looking at lurker. And that's to indicate that it's not always just me not doing my job and going long periods of time where I'm not getting damage on boss. Sometimes it's what my job is during that fight, and this is one of those occasions. Orgasm here got a 26 green parse for 936 DPS, 71.03% uptime. He did 285,000 damage. I had a 17 gray parse. I did 236,000 damage. I had a 58% active time. And I got 774 DPS. I'm just rounding up. Okay, why? Why is that? Let's look at Lurker 2. I had 75 auto shots. He had 96, so again, just putting me to shame. I hit a lot harder than him. I crit, so it closes the gap on this. But that's like saying the score was closer than it really was. That's what I think. He is very clearly outperforming. My steady shots were at 75. His were at 93. He was doggone close to a 1-to-1. I was exactly at a 1-to-1. Holy smokes. That never happens. 18 arcane shots and 8 multi-shots. Is he reversed on that? 8 multi-shots. 14 serpent stings. You gotta be kidding me. Maybe I need to copy that also. This is where I'll probably want to look at the top parsers and see if they're doing serpent sting. He had 8 multi-shots and 10 arcane shots. So he's pretty balanced. I'm not. I overly arcane shot. Okay. Number 3. Oh, also look at these gaps. My gaps once again Well, this is pretty close to my gap. But he's doing some damage. That must be his serpent sting taken away. Am I right about that? Ooh, yes I am. Look at me being able to use deductive reasoning. I'm starting to learn the game and how to use these tools. I was able to get that on my own, man. I'm proud of myself. We are retard strong up in here. Right here. Gap. Big gap. What's that gray? Raptor strike? Okay. So he weaved a little bit of melee in. Let's go to the analysis. And then I'll tell you. Well, I told GROK also. Alright, so it goes in and it says the active time is low again. This is the third fight where a significant activity gap appears. Takeaways. Downtime is the primary issue once more. Personal shot quality remains excellent. Pet contribution is weak. Kill command tracks with activity. Pattern update. Fights with significant movement or phase transitions consistently show your active percentage dropping in the 50 to 70% range, while more static fights let you compete or win. Okay. Now here is where I tell it, okay, on this fight, I defend a platform by myself. That means that my pet gets 0 damage because he can't cross the water to Lurker. It also means I have to manage the 2 Naga assassins, which is where my pet died, and help with 2 others on the other platform. I can hit them from my platform once done. Does that explain my increased downtime? Does the info show my uptime on the Naga assassins? And if so, when we add that back in, does it bring me closer to his uptime? Okay, now it gives me a couple answers here. The first answer is yes, that fully explains the low active percentage and the missing pet damage. Okay, but then it goes on. Does adding the ambushers back close the gap? And it says I can't see the unfiltered numbers from the screenshots you sent. They're all on the excluded ambusher view, but based on typical lurker logs and your description, time spent on the 2 assassins is usually 20 to 40 plus seconds of real combat. If we could include that damage, your overall active time would rise noticeably and the gap versus orc would shrink. Your personal shot quality on the boss was still excellent, so the execution while on the boss looks fine. Alright, so then I come down and I'm like, okay, here is the unfiltered damage, because I kind of played around with it and figured out how to do it. With ambushers added back in. The problem is, his numbers went up as well. Okay, so that shows that orc, as would be expected since he's ranged, is also turning around and hitting these ambushers. So I say the problem is his numbers went up as well. Did I close the gap at all, or did the gap simply widen between us? And it tells me that the gap widened. So you know what, here it is. The gap widened slightly in absolute terms. So I think what this means, and I need to ask my raid leader about this, but I was thinking about it and I'm like, why the heck am I standing on this platform? I'm a hunter. Like, I can hit those guys from the main platform. And that way my pet could be on the boss. And then whenever I went through this and read and I saw that, well, that's what orc did. It's like, yeah, I should be doing that. So I'm going to talk to my raid lead and just make sure that that's the way that this got started. Is that when we first started doing this fight, we put me and a warlock out on a platform and we put a couple other DPS out on the other platform. And that's how we did the fight. I'm sure that we got that strategy from somebody else somewhere on YouTube. But I'm thinking that you don't have to do it that way. So I need to ask the question. All right, so it wanted to know if I was done, because GROK felt like he had a substantial sample package, but we only had 2 more bosses to do because we didn't finish SSC. And Moragrim is like the #1 boss, according to my raid leader. The #1 boss to look at when checking analysis, because there's not a lot of movement. And the movement that there is pretty straightforward. I think I actually say that. Not yet. 2 more bosses. This next one is one of the best to measure performance because movement on this fight is pretty minimal, and what movement there is straightforward. This is Moragrim. So let's take a look at the pictures first, and then we'll read what GROK has to say. So Orc topped it again. 99.34% active. Man, this dude knows what he's doing. 1,596.1 DPS. He had a 47 green parse. So, you know, I mean, he's not the best hunter in the world. This is in relation to other hunters. None of us are. But he clearly knows what he's doing because he's consistently got really solid active time. All right, I'm at a 39. I had 98.36%, so that's good also. Came in at 1,385 damage. And I had 369,000 overall damage, and he had 425,000. All right, now that's going to be pretty important when we start reading about GROK, because this was actually a really, really good comparison between BM and survival. And GROK will walk us through that. But let's open up picture number 2. There we go, picture number 2. And I have a bad dip here. I think I was getting line of sighted. I had to catch up and weave through some bubbles and stuff. Orc never had that problem. And we see here I had 94 auto shot casts. He had 112, so he's still solidly ahead of me, but I don't necessarily know if this would be counted as blowing me out of the water. I had 84 steady shots. He had, well, here's Porkins, his pet. His steady shots, he was at 65. So he gets substantially fewer steady shots. I think that his rotation is not as tight as mine. But his uptime is just annihilating me. And that means that his damage ends up crushing me. I actually did fairly decent. I had 18 arcane shots and 15 multi-shots. I'm at least kind of close to even. You know, for him, 21 arcane and 15 multi-shot. And he got 16 raptor strikes in. I have not even really looked at this. Man, I don't know what I'm doing with melee weaving. But that's something I'll look at down the road. I want to get my primary duties handled and ironed out first. Let's look at Moragrim number 3 then. And cast per minute 21.4 versus 25.6, 18.9 versus 14.6. I actually did better there. So, you know, at a total of 58.3, he had 66.6. We're kind of in each other's vicinity, you know. 95, this is just on the boss. 95 versus 113. 84 versus 65. 95 versus what? 94. Well, that don't make no dang sense at all. What? So, look at the graph. So I have a gap here. He has less of a gap. Less of a gap. I think this is me running to get into position. And same with him, but he gets in position a lot quicker and starts firing. Then I had another gap right here. I think I got bubbled, whatever you call it, you know, whenever you get caught, tossed in the air. And then after that, I do have some gaps that he does not have here, and I think these are line of sight issues. Both of us had a gap right here, so that whenever you see two gaps lined up in about exactly the same spot, that makes me think it's event driven. Probably Murloc showing up or something like that. Alright. Let's see what GROK says. Let me get a drink. Stand by for me. Okay. So if we go through here, it says this is an excellent control fight. Both of you had near perfect uptime, minimal movement, and clean execution. The gap here is about as pure a survival versus BM comparison as we're going to get. Auto shot, 95. Oh, I missed one shot. That's what this is saying. 94 of 95 casts. He had 112 of 113. I'm hitting harder. I'm critting more often. And those crits are hitting harder. He's getting more raw auto shots out. And that was the difference because he got more DPS. I was not able to close the gap with my harder hits. Steady shot. 84 casts versus 65 casts for him. Kill command, 41 versus 38. See, that's what we would expect because I have higher crit, triggering kill command more often. But his kill commands are probably going to hit harder because his pet is buffed. 65.6k damage for the pet for me and 133.8 for him. So 66,000 versus 134,000. Both of us had 15 multi-shots. I had 259 total casts and he had 296. Takeaways on this clean fight. Uptime is solved. 98% plus active for both of you. No significant downtime issues. Your personal damage is strong. Higher average hits and crit percentage on auto and steady shot, and you actually edged him on kill command count. This is exactly what good survival play should look like. The gap is almost entirely the pet. His pet did more than twice yours. That single difference accounts for the vast majority of the 56,000 total damage gap. This is the expected beast mastery advantage when both pets stay alive and both hunters have high uptime. Everything else is competitive. Weaving, KC usage, that's kill command, multi-shot, and shot quality all look solid on your side. Now when it says weaving, it's talking about my rotation, because I don't melee weave. It's talking about my steady shot to auto shot rotation. As well as, because I know that I'm doing it, kicking off those arcane shots and multi-shots in the gaps. Doing all of that without clipping my auto shot. Updated overall picture on fights with near perfect uptime and both pets alive. You stay competitive and the remaining gap is largely the inherent BM pet advantage. Now see, it was able to reach this because I explained things to him about survival versus BM. You saw where I pointed those things out. That's, if you're using AI, you got to learn how to do this. You got to see it. Like whenever he says something, you got to key in and be like, he misunderstands. So let me give him some more information. And then that's going to affect his analysis down the road, right? So you want to be able to do those things. On fights with movement, phase transitions, or assignment costs, the gaps widen because of downtime or utility sacrifices. Your core survival execution is in good shape. The biggest controllable improvements are still reducing avoidable downtime on the messier fights and keeping the pet alive and attacking more consistently. One more boss left. Okay. Now, I kind of front load him. So I give him my 3 pictures. Maybe before we show that, you and I will look at these pictures. What was his name? It's Carathras. Carathras. Here's picture number 1. Okay, Orgasm. Oh, I don't know why this is here. That kind of ruins some things. He got a 51 on this fight. That's really good. You know, again, for us, you know, where we've been at, that's very good. He had a 98.28% active uptime. He got 1600 DPS, and he did about 338,000 damage. I had a 32. I don't know what this 5.82% means. I need to ask about that. Somebody in my guild. I had 281,000 damage, a 97% uptime, so that's not bad, and 1,300 damage, DPS. Okay, picture number 2. We got a gap right here. Got a gap right here. I think I got knocked down by a fireball that I somehow lived through. I had 73 auto shots and he had 98, so we're back to a pretty substantial lead for him on that. His pet came in second place. That's what you want as a Beastmaster. For me, it's going to be steady shot. I had 63 steady shots and he had 60. I had, once again, we're inverted here. I had 7 multi-shots and 15 arcane shots. I would rather these two be flipped. He had 15 multi-shots and 16 arcane shots. Once again, he uses Serpent Sting. This aimed shot for me is during a misdirect pull. Okay. Bring up the third and final picture. This is just a cleaner graph. I read from this better. We got a pretty significant gap here, and I will be explaining that to you shortly. Notice how it's not present for him. You know what I think this is? Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute. We're going to look at this picture again. Okay, I have very narrow times missed here. That's not terrible. He actually has some wider gaps. But then as we get deeper into the fight, I think I'm having to move to avoid the tornado, and he just does a better job at it. Both of us have a gap here, but mine is more than double his size. I would like to know what that was all about. And then I have a gap right here. And he doesn't have any gap at all. Maybe this is where I got knocked down by that fireball. Okay. Auto shots, 79 versus 98. Disgusting. Steady shots, 63 versus 60. You can see the CPM difference too. 22.6 versus 28. Kill commands. How did we do here? He should be in favor because he had so many more shots. 31 versus 30. I guess because I had more crits. 15 arcane shots, 7 multi. Yada, yada, yada. You know what? I never see him move to aspect of the Viper. I should ask him about that. Perhaps he is content to sit there and just stay in aspect of the Hawk and plink away it with auto shot, rather than building back mana so that he can switch back to aspect of the Hawk and fire off special shots. I kind of bet that's what's going on. And if that's the case, I might want to ask AI about that. And because if that's the case, I might be able to duplicate that and increase my output. Well, it would certainly increase my auto shots. Okay, well anyway, I'm thinking live, and I don't want to necessarily do that here. Let's get going with GROK's answer. So I tell it, I front load GROK with this info. Fathom Lord Carthus is next. On this fight, I am tasked with running up to a platform with a healer and off-tank, and then misdirecting the Sorceress Naga to the off-tank. I use Distracting Shot, a time-consuming but high-threat aimed shot, and Arcane Shot to give him a lot of threat on target. Then, I must transition down to the rest of the group and begin DPSing raid targets. So I get a bit of a late start. Okay, so 32% parse versus his 51%, 281,000 damage versus his 338,000, 97% uptime versus his 98%, 1300 DPS to his 1600. Active time is excellent for both of you. The gap is real but smaller than on the high movement fights. Auto shots, 73 of 79 for him. I guess 98 of 98. I'm hitting harder. I'm critting much more often, 20% more often. Steady shots, I had 63, he had 60. I had 31 kill commands to his 30. I had 42,000 pet damage to his 95,000. 7 multi-shots to his 15. 206 total cast to his 235. A 59 CPM to his 67. Takeaways with your assignment in mind. You described a role creates a delayed start on the main targets. That shows up as slightly fewer total auto and steady casts. A visible early gap on the damage graph. Yep. That's this right here. That's why I was telling you we're going to look at this picture again. See, I think we both misdirected. I misdirected my off tank. He misdirected the main tank. Then there's a gap for the tanks to get aggro. And he starts DPS immediately because he's already in position. Whereas I have to run down and get into position. It's also possible that he's not doing the same rotation I am. Well, it's not just possible, it's a certainty because I had one aimed shot and he doesn't. So he used Distracting Shot. And that was enough. He probably followed it up with an Arcane Shot. Either that or a multi-shot, but Arcane would be quicker. And so I'm putting a little bit more quality. It could be overkill. Probably is. That would be the big thing. We need to talk about efficiency, right? But I'm putting a little bit more quality into the snap threat establishment. Then on top of that, I'm having to run down the ramp and get into position and begin my DPS. So that all is leading to this gap right here. Look, we popped Bloodlust and I missed some of it. See, that's kind of a big deal. Okay, let's see what else GROK says. We're almost done. Creates a delayed start on the main targets. That shows up as slightly fewer total auto and steady cast, a visible early gap on the damage graph, and still very high overall active percentage once you join the group. Despite the late start and the utility work, your personal shot quality and kill command usage remains strong. You matched or beat him on kill commands. The remaining gap is again dominated by the Beast Mastery pet advantage, 28% versus your 15% of overall damage. This is another example of a raid assignment cost rather than a pure mechanical failure. Alright, so here's GROK's final summary then. We now have a clear, consistent picture. Your strengths, visible on every fight. Excellent personal shot quality. Higher average hits plus crit percentage than the BM Hunter. Solid steady weaving when active. Good kill command usage whenever uptime is high. Competitive or winning when active time is close and pets are equalized. Main controllable issues. Avoidable downtime on movement and phase heavy fights, which is the single biggest DPS lever for me. Pet uptime, frequently much lower than the BM pet. Dies, can't reach target, or not res promptly. I don't really know how he's reading that. How can you gauge the pet's uptime? Well, it's here, but it's not listed. Okay, well, it is what it is. Raid utility costs that are expected. Aspect of the wild on Hydros, solo platform on Lurker, misdirect and threat work on Karathras. These are not mistakes, just real DPS sacrifices. Priority order going forward. Tighten positioning and stutter stepping on high movement fights so active percentage stays in the mid 80s or higher. Treat pet survival and re-engage as a high priority. Macro keybind awareness. Keep doing what you're already doing well on the clean fights. Your survival fundamentals are in good shape. Closing the activity and pet gaps on the messier bosses should produce the biggest parse improvements. So I go on to ask, on this fight, time on target were pretty close, but his auto shots are higher. Does the small difference in time on target correlate to the gap in auto shots, or am I clipping more often than he is? So I wanted GROK to look at that a little closer. So it did. Here's our difference, 1.29% difference. Active time, that's around 2.7 seconds. But I had 20 to 25 fewer auto shots. So it says a 2.7 second difference in active time is not enough to explain 20 plus missing auto shots. At a typical effective auto shot speed of around 2.2 to 2.5 seconds after haste, 2.7 extra seconds of uptime would only give him roughly 1 extra auto, maybe 2 at most. The actual gap is an order of magnitude larger, so what's causing the auto shot difference? The most likely explanations, in order, your late start from platform assignment. Yeah. It says it could cost me 8 to 12 auto shots. Your smaller micro gaps after you join. The casting timeline shows your bars are slightly less continuous than his in places. A few 0.5 to 1 second delays here and there add up over a 3.5 minute fight. Possible mild clipping. On a fight this clean, a consistent 0.8 to 0.85 steady to auto shot ratio, which you've shown on several fights, leaves a little more room than a perfect 1-to-1, but it can also mean occasional delayed autos if the weave isn't perfectly timed. It's not severe clipping, but it's not zero either. And see, whatever I'm losing there, he's losing a lot more. I'm doing better on my rotation than he is. But he's getting more auto shots in because of his uptime, is what I'm thinking. Conclusion for this fight, the 1.3% active time difference does not explain the auto shot gap. The combination of the assigned late start plus some residual micro gaps and minor timing imperfections does. Your individual shot quality remains excellent, so the issue is quantity of autos, not quality. This fits the overall pattern we've seen. Like, I don't think this actually applies. We don't have a quality setting in World of Warcraft, like if you get a headshot, it's going to hit harder than if you were to get, hit him in his arm. World of Warcraft doesn't track any of that. So sometimes your AI is kind of just BSing you. But the overall point has been real solid. This fits the overall pattern we've seen. When the fight is clean and you have full uptime from the pool, the auto counts get much closer. Okay, so there we have it. That is nearly 2 hours of just going through, working with GROK, using some newfound, how am I trying to put that? I gained new information from talking with a human being, my raid leader. And it helped explain to me, or maybe remind me in some cases, about how to use logs. That gave me just enough insight, along with my experience in the game now and my understanding of the class, to be able to take that to AI and ask the right questions. You know, they say there's no such thing as a stupid question, and I kind of like that because I like to encourage people to ask when they're trying to learn. But there can certainly be a wide gap in what in efficiency. If you have the chance to ask a professor 10 questions, and all 10 of your questions are at such a beginner level that half of them don't even have very much to do with the topic at hand, but the professor has to spend time to clear your confusion up on that. So you walk out of that room smarter. You did learn a lot of stuff, but being able to ask good questions makes the whole thing a lot more efficient. And I feel like I was able to do that here. I kind of knew what sorts of questions I need to ask. I knew what kinds of screens I needed to show it. And then AI was able to alleviate my primary concern that my rotation was just borked, and instead help me to laser focus in on the fact that I need to stutter step a lot more. I need to be anticipating where I'm going to be needing to shoot next and start working my way towards that. I need to have better placement, positioning of myself in the fight, and I need better movement. And all of that should then lead to greater uptime on target. And that's the key thing. That's the key takeaway. Uptime on target is what's killing me. And if I do those things, then because of my higher crit percentage, higher agility, and higher hit cap, the fact that I'm hit capped, I should, on most fights, pretty much blow past Orc. Which is not me trashing him. It's me saying that's where I'm expected to be to help our team. That's what I'm capable of. My guy in his gear with his talent tree is capable of doing something like that at this point in time. And so at that point in time, I would then start comparing myself to people that are, you know, like, they're finishing at the top parses. Now, I'm going to have to take some things into consideration there. Are they having to do the same jobs that I'm having to do? In a lot of these cases, I think they're going to be one of the top 3 DPSers in their entire guild. Are you going to take one of your top 3 DPSers and tell them to put Aspect of the Wild on? Because I doubt it. Right? You would tell one of the other hunters to do that. Are you going to have them kite if he's a top 3 DPS? Probably not. Not if you have somebody else who can kite competently. I can give you an example of that right now. In our guild, we have a elemental shaman that kites the striders. The reason is because he's better at it than I am. But optimally, you want me kiting him, and the reason is because that elemental shaman does big deeps. He does big damage, and so you want him just focusing on damage. You know, so, you know, that's an example, using myself as the one that's kind of causing the problem. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I hope that this was informative for some of you guys. I don't expect it to be that great for anybody who's looking for answers on World of Warcraft. This is more an example of what AI can do for you. And just little things like video games. If you can do it in video games, you can apply it to things like finances, or help me figure out how to coalesce my various loans and what card I should put it on, stuff like that. And it can really help you out in areas that you used to just you'd have to know somebody who was good at it, or you'd have to go pay for a service or something like that. And I think that as we're moving forward, that's probably going to be one of the biggest things that AI has a ripple effect on, because it's going to affect everybody. Now, there'll probably be some positive and some negative with it. But gosh, this was really useful for me. And I have a very laser-focused plan of attack on what I need to be improving on as a result of just being able to hash it out with a competent AI. GROK is my favorite AI of the big three: Google, ChatGPT, and GROK. I like GROK the most. So there you go, guys. Let's go ahead and end it on that. Again, I am Aesop Grim. Thank you for coming by the channel. I hope you like what you saw. More importantly, I hope all is well in your neck of the woods, and I'll see you in the next episode where this story continues.
This place ain't no such thing as civilized. It's man, so in love with greed, he has forgotten himself and found only